Unforgiveness is a terrible stronghold in the life of a Christian. I remember when I was about 5 or 6 in Christ, the Lord began to really convict me about the unforgiveness that I had towards my dad. I didn't have much of a relationship with my dad as a teenager. He's in heaven now, so I can share that he was unfaithful to my mom during my growing up years, and I really hated him because of that. We didn't get along very well. He wasn't mean to me in any way or anything, but I had a lot of anger towards him and a mountain of unforgiveness. But as the Lord began convicting me of that, I began to pray, asking him to help me to forgive my dad, because I wanted to be obedient. I wanted to forgive him. And I had a dream. This was not a prophetic dream like the dream that I talked about last September. In this dream, I saw my dad sitting on the couch in the living room where he lived until he died. He was sitting on the edge of the couch. He had his hands behind him, and I knew that they were bound in some way. His feet were tied around his ankles. He had a blindfold around his eyes, and there was something over his mouth. I can't remember now if it was tape or something, but he was not able to speak, so it must have been tape. It's been a long time since I had that dream. I walked towards my dad, and I got down on my knees in front of him, and I laid my head on his knees. And I remember thinking, I just wanted my dad to love me. I just wanted him to stroke my hair and to say, Dana, I love you, my daughter. But he couldn't. He was all tied up, all bound up. I was crying. And I stood up, and when I stood up, I saw that there was a throne in my dad's living room on the other wall. And I began walking towards this throne. It was very big. And as I walked toward it, I turned into a child of about the age of 5 or 6, I would guess. And when I got there, Jesus was seated in that throne, and I climbed up into his lap. And he held me, and he stroked my hair, and he said, Dana, I love you, my daughter. And I woke up. I cried for several hours after waking up about the dream, wondering what the dream was about. And I remember the Lord telling me, Dana, your dad is a sinful man. He is a slave to his sinful nature, just as you were before you gave your life to me. He does not have the ability to love you perfectly as you want him to love you. He is a product of how he was raised, the wounds that he has experienced, the lies that he has believed. But if you will love him just as he is, and allow me to be that perfect father that you desire, then I will restore your relationship with your dad. You got to forgive him. And so I did. And when I forgave my dad and began calling him on a daily basis just to talk about piddly things, football or whatever he was doing, watching the school board meetings, one of his favorite things to do because he lived in a different state than me, telling him always that I loved him, something I had not done. And I also began to call him my paw. I had always called him Dad before that. Very quickly, the Lord began to heal our relationship. When he would leave messages on my voicemail, he would always end them with saying, "This is my paw." He didn't say, "This is your paw." He used the exact same verbiage that I did. I would call him my paw, and he would say, "This is my paw." He would write me a letter, and it would say, "Love, my paw." I don't know that I ever would have had that restoration in my relationship with my dad if I had not been obedient to forgive him and to love him just as he was. And not only did that restore our relationship, but I believe that my forgiveness towards my dad, because he knew that it was after I had given my life to Christ, he knew how angry I was towards him before that. I believe it was my forgiving my dad that finally convinced him, before he died from cancer in 2012, that if I could forgive him, maybe God could forgive him as well. So I want to encourage you to forgive those that you're holding unforgiveness towards. To be obedient to the Lord. And because forgiveness can give you the opportunity to impact those that you are holding bitterness, rage, and anger towards for all of eternity, as they may too come to believe that the God that you serve could forgive them for the things that they have done as well. Unforgiveness is a terrible, terrible stronghold. It kills relationships. Please be obedient to Christ. Forgive as you've been forgiven. We did not deserve our forgiveness, and others may not either. But forgiveness and mercy and grace and love are some of the most powerful gifts that we can offer others, that may just be what it takes to convince them that the God that we serve loves them and can forgive them as well.